Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and you're listening to and are watching the snobOS show, the show for Apple snobs, when we talk all things Apple and then some. We appreciate you joining us for another week. We got a lot of stuff to go through, and we're going to run right on through it. So let's get right into it. We're going to get right into our first segment. This is the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. So the first story I have is I thought iOS 14.5 was coming out, but apparently there was some major security flaw that they needed to patch. So iOS or Apple just released iOS and iPadOS 14.4.1 that patches a serious security flaw that updates a fix in a WebKit bug that could allow maliciously crafted web content to actually execute code on your computer or your device, whether it be an iPhone, tablet, what have you. So we're still waiting on iOS 14.5, but I guess iOS 14.4.1 could not wait. So I would seriously suggest that you update to iOS 14.4.1 on your iPhones, iPad. I think there's even a Mac update as well. They didn't mention that in the story, but I just want to make sure you're aware that this patch is serious enough that you probably need to go ahead and take our word for it and go ahead and
Yeah.
update. So,
Update. Just check.
yep,
Just run a quick little check for updates and update all your devices.
yep. So this show normally comes out on Friday. So the iOS 14.4.1 was announced on Tuesday, no, Monday, I want to say. So you have enough people should have updated to where you can just go ahead and update and don't have to worry about waiting in line or taking forever. It should be zip pretty quick. So definitely do that. The next story that I have, Apple, it looks like it is actually killing off the iMac Pro. So basically, what they've done, all of these journalists, they've done their research, and it looks like Apple is discontinuing the iMac Pro, and they are not replenishing stock when it runs out. So the last iMac Pros that are out there, they are, once they're gone, they're not replenishing the stock. And furthermore, that when you go on the iMac website, there's only one configuration. With the iMac Pro, you could get, before this, you could get 16 gigs of RAM, you could get, up to I think 2 or 4 terabytes worth of space, all these other things. Now they've pretty much put only one variant out there, which is the 3.0 gigahertz 10 core Intel Xenon W processor with 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of storage. And that one costs $5,000. So that's the only variant that you can get if you buy directly from Apple. And then once that stock is gone, it is gone. So people are assuming, and Apple has since confirmed, that they are discontinuing the iMac Pro. I didn't read anywhere to where there is going to be some sort of new replacements. Maybe the Mac Pro will be the thing going forward, and you have to buy a nice monitor, whatever case may be, or you have to get a MacBook Pro. So basically, that is pretty much it for the iMac Pro. And for those who don't know, the iMac Pro is the monitor and computer all built into one versus having to get a
All
separate
in
desk,
one.
right? Versus getting a separate desktop. So $5,000 is a lot of money, but if you
If you
were
got it, go on for
right, and if
I
you
ain't got it.
right, if you were waiting for the next version of the iMac Pro, this is it. So
You
if
might
you
as well get this if this is what you're trying to wait for.
right, if you were trying to wait for that all-in-one powerful iMac, this one is it. Yep.
Yep.
All right, so the last thing in the lowdown is Apple. It looks like the rumors are out, and it looks like the next Apple event is rumored for March 23rd. Of course, some of the things we're still waiting on is AirTags. We did a story maybe like a week or two ago to where, Find My app in, for iOS and iPadOS lets you add things to Find My. So before you could track your AirPods, you could track your Mac, so on and so forth, iPhone. But now you can track things. So it looks like
Items.
right,
There's an
items.
items
Yeah,
tab.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Items tab,
Items.
right.
Yeah.
So it looks like maybe AirTags is getting closer to be released. We know there should be a new version of the iPad Pro coming out. There's also rumored that there'll be the new generation of AirPods Pro, and maybe even a new Apple TV out. So this event on March 23rd, we are looking for at least maybe 4 new items. Were you interested in any of them outside of the AirTags? I know maybe the iPad Pro, maybe.
So I don't want AirTags because that's something else for me to keep up with, and I'm not keep up with that. I am interested in the iPad Pro
Okay.
and the new generation AirPods.
Okay.
But what I was hoping, as we talked last week, I just had a birthday and I was trying to figure out what to buy myself,
Okay.
and I wanted to buy myself a new MacBook Pro
Okay.
M1, and I thought that that would be out in this month being March, so that I could buy that for myself. But it looks as if that's that's not coming with this one.
Yeah. So John Prosser is this, he's the new kid on the block. First, it was Ming Chi Kuo, who was the analyst that was, dropping all the bombs as far as, letting people know what's up and coming as far as Apple's concerned. Looks like John Prosser, he's got a tweet that says updated info from a reliable source, products that are ready. AirTags, iPad Pro, AirPods, Apple TV. So if he's the new kid on the block and he is to be believed, when the new event in March 23rd, those will be the 1, 2, 3, 4 devices that they will announce. It looks like, since the pandemic isn't gone anywhere, this will be another virtual event, but you can pretty much schedule March 23rd as the date for these new Apple devices. So definitely get your pocketbooks ready for that.
Yeah, I'll probably pick up the iPad Pro and the new AirPods, more than likely, and hopefully the new laptop in the fall, unless they want to do a summer press release type of thing.
Maybe.
Which it's possible, strictly for the fact that we've already seen what M1 can do and we had the big event. So the next build out will be for the ones with the larger screens.
Right.
So maybe they don't necessarily need an event to release that, since we had the big announcement September.
I'm thinking maybe WWDC in June is when,
in June.
Yeah, when they'll do the new bigger M1 MacBook Pros.
I could see that.
All right.
Probably they would be available probably until the fall.
Right. All right. So like I said, that was pretty fast for the lowdown. Wasn't too much going on in the world of Apple. So let's move on to second string, where we talk all things tech. I couldn't find a whole lot as far as all things tech, but I did find an interesting story about how far along Japan is as it relates to this whole pandemic, COVID, specifically with people trying to get tested. One of the cool things that I saw Japan is doing is they are using vending machines to let people get access to COVID-19 tests. And I thought that was pretty cool because, like I mentioned, one of the reasons why I'm hesitant to take the vaccine is partly because of America's handling of the whole pandemic from front to back. Now you can blame that on the previous administration rather. You can blame that on, Americans specifically, and their, you ain't not going to violate my rights attitude towards this whole pandemic. You can blame it on a lot of things, but it seems like you would think America, with all this ingenuity, with all this technology, with all of the things America's got going for us, you would think they would be on the fore. And with the amount of deaths, at the amount of positive people who have tested positive for COVID, you would think we'd be on the forefront of new technology to help people get tested, to help people get aid, and to help people actually get vaccinated. Clearly, that's not the case, because Japan, they're using vending machines to give people testing kits that sell for American $40 American for 4,500 yen. Basically, what they do is Japan, anybody anywhere in Japan, you can go to a vending machine and it will give you a COVID test. You take the test, do the swab yourself, and then you mail back in the saliva sample for processing. Now that could be just a numbers game because there's a lot of people in Japan because according to the story that I'm reading, there was a huge response from the public when the machines were first deployed that some of the vending machines needed to be emptied of money twice a day. So that was so many people
Wow.
that was trying to get tested because of course in Japan it's probably a little bit more strict. Their lockdown was a little bit more stringent than ours. So people had to know whether or not they were testing positive or negative on a regular basis, probably more so than Americans, that you could attribute that to them being more stringent or flat out, they're more communal. I'm not the leader of, Asian, culture, but it
Mm-hmm.
seems like they're a little bit more communal. You can tell, like even before coronavirus, you could see that when some of them when they got a cold, just a regular cold or the flu, they would put a mask on
They
be-
always masked up.
because they don't want to affect other people. So I can imagine how that culture would carry over to the pandemic to where it's like, okay, well, we need to know fast whether or not I am positive or negative because one, I want to make sure I remedy myself as soon as possible, and two, I don't want to affect other people. So all that to say is that to me it's just the fact that they jumped out in front of this, and who knows where it came from. There's still debate on how COVID got here, but the fact that Japan is just as smart enough or ingenuitous enough to actually provide vending machines with testing kits to make it easier for people. It just leads me to ask, why is America in general so behind on this COVID tech? So I just want to get
Money.
your money here.
Easy money.
Yeah.
In this country, sick people are big business.
Right.
It's better for, unfortunately, when it comes to economics, it's better for people to be sick. The amount of money that these contractors have made on PPE, have made on developing the vaccine, have made on deploying the vaccine, this is a whole lot of money, for contracts giving to, thinking about the previous administration, giving to, friends and family to make a lot of money with doing very little. And even now that we have a new administration, they're doing things, more swiftly, but you still have to have it deployed. You still have to have PPE. You still have to have all these contracts. And quite frankly, it's big business and better money. So no, we're not going to have any innovation and ingenuity around this. Why are we going to make it easier for people to stay healthy, to get the medical care that they need? Um, why? I mean, that's taking money out of our pockets. If you look at, kind of going back to what we talked about during the snobbish show, um, there were a lot of British people watching the interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and a lot of their comments were, "Why are there so many commercials about medicine? Like,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
have to
Right.
pay for medicine here. That's why we have NHS. You go to the doctor, they give you what you need. You don't have to pay for it. You keep on moving." And I mean, if we're talking about ingenuity and innovation, we're going backwards. If you think about what is being done, how, the black and brown vote is just being, completely subjugated, is being
Right.
completely reversed. They are making things harder instead of making them easier. Why? Because it benefits them
Right.
to not make things so easy for people. And, the amount of cost surrounds something, around insulin. I was reading about that earlier. Apparently, the patent for insulin was sold for only $1 because insulin was made to be, you know, free or really inexpensive, but it's costing people thousands and thousands of dollars to get their monthly insulin here in America. but you could go to Canada and get it for like $40. I was
Right.
actually $40 is really low, so much so that the US started making bills around, prohibiting people or making it really difficult for people or putting people in tough situations to even go and buy the much cheaper version of the exact same drug in Canada.
Right.
They were basically saying, no, you can't do that. You have to buy our $2,000 insulin. And there are people who were, rationing out, their insulin or whatever, because one, they couldn't afford it. And then we are in a pandemic.
Right.
So I say all of that to say is these other countries, Japan, New Zealand, China, you saw how quick after, COVID hit over there, how they got those hospitals built. Here, even in Georgia, where we're spiking, they've converted a convention hall to a medical facility. And most of that convention hall, which is really, really huge, is filled with, people who, are sick from COVID. So it all goes back again. A simple answer is money.
Right.
It's easy for countries like Japan to make it easy for their citizens because it helps the greater good.
Right.
But here, it's so much selfishness and it's so much, you
Capitalism.
know, capitalism and greed that no, we can help people, but they got to pay for it.
Right. Yep. Yes, that's what the free market is. The free market, but it's funny, when people choose free market and when they don't, right? Because it's with this whole stimulus rolling out now, a lot of the objection is, oh, it's going to cost too much, and there was one
Who's going to pay for
who's
it?
going to pay for it and how much it's going to cost, so on and so forth. But when the previous administration did them tax cuts, they were like, yeah,
Yes.
I'll take more uh government involvement,
I'll take
please.
socialism.
Right, right,
Socialism for 1,000, Alex.
right,
Or when
right.
they were giving out all these PPE loans,
Yeah.
you know what?
Uh-huh.
Socialism for 1,000, Alex.
Uh-huh.
But I can have all the money, but you poor people, middle
Yeah.
class people, this isn't reserved for you. It's only reserved for
Yeah.
us important people. Yeah.
So yeah, it is it's just
You know what time it is.
America's in general, just America's dealing with this pandemic. It just, to me, it's just like, what happens? How are we going to handle things when something really serious hits us? And again, this is not, minimizing the effects that COVID has had on families, because a lot of people have lost entire, generations to COVID. But what happens, you take all of those movies, for example, to where, post-apocalyptic world, to where, we've got to build this ship and find a new planet to live on. What happens if something really, really, really happens to where we really have got to decide we're going to stick together or it's every man for themselves? And
Every man for themselves every single time.
just this
With black
pandemic,
people being on the very bottom.
it just
We gotta leave
in
y'all.
general, rich and poor, privileged and not privileged, race, religion, all these things. I'm scared all these unimportant things are going to
Hmm.
come get in the way
Yep.
of how we handle a major catastrophe. And you can look no further than how America specifically handled this pandemic, in my opinion. Now,
And the vaccine
and
rollout.
the vaccine
I
rollout.
mean, it's, people who need the vaccine should get the vaccine, who are told, the vaccine goes to them first. They're not getting it. It's, rich people going into, I know here in Atlanta, some lady posted on Twitter and said that she went to Stonecrest and got her vaccine and she's not in any other categories. And this has been a while back. And she was bragging about it. And I'm like, you really just went on social media and said that you aren't supposed to get this. You went to a black neighborhood, a black community to get it, taking it away from someone who it was meant for. And you thought that was cute and you thought that was funny.
Yep.
That's why I say when it comes down to it, if there is something where we as Americans have to come together for something, or we as a global community have to come together, it's not gonna it's not gonna fare well. Like we have the 1% who have all the money, the 1% are the ones that are unfortunately they're going to be safe.
Yeah, it reminds me of that movie Elysium. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Mm-mm.
of course, the Earth is almost on the brink of apocalyptic, and they've got this space station, in between us and the moon, to where all the rich people have moved on this space station. Everything is beautiful. They get all the vaccinations. They get all the medical help. So the protagonist,
Flourish.
right, they're flourishing, right? So the protagonist is trying to, get on Elysium to, fix his ailment, so on and so forth. So, but
Mm-hmm.
that picture, for those who know what I'm talking about, I could see that happening in real time, to where something crazy has happened on Earth, and those with the means, those with the resources, have said deuces and left everybody else on Earth to fend it for themselves. Of course, that's trying to get. I'm about to change the subject, but my cynic self is like, man, we have fumbled when it comes to this pandemic, and I hate to see what happens next.
Yeah, and that movie you're talking about, I watched one on Netflix. I think it's called like the 3% or something like that,
Okay.
where that's pretty much the same thing. If you have to go through like these rigorous tests to be proven, worthy to go into the safe space, a nice clean where they have water, they have food, they have everything they need, but it's only for, the 3% and only a couple people get to go at a time. And it's kind of like the Hunger Games where you have to go and do all these tests and they're pitted against people. So yeah. And the world, as they know it, is everybody has nothing, it's like post apocalyptic already there. And everybody's trying to get their, you know,
Their
thing
ticket, their
to get
golden
into
ticket.
their
Yeah.
golden ticket. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds about right. All
Yep.
right, all right. And that's pretty much all the interesting things I could find in Second String. We had a couple things that are currently in For the Culture, but it kind of all fit together. So I pushed it on down to For the Culture. So for this first story, Jack Dorsey of Square, of Twitter, actually, one of the co-founders of Twitter, and then moved on to co-found Square, which Cash App and all those good things of, buys a majority stake in a Jay-Z's title. The deal is worth $297 million in cash and stock. Jay-Z will move on to join Square's board of directors. And additionally, if you remember Title's rollout, one of the tenets that, was the whole
Made it different.
right, was the fact that the music creators, the content creators, would have a ownership stake. And they brought out, some heavy hitters, brought out Kanye, brought out Rihanna, brought out Beyonce, brought
Beyonce.
out, Dead Mouse. It brought out all these heavy
Yeah.
hitters, Nicki Minaj, a lot of these
Oh yeah, she
people.
was. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of those initial acts, a lot of those initial investors, when this is all said and done, they are expected to pocket a little over 8.9 million dollars after the smoke clears from all this. So all that to say, it looks like on the from my eyes, it looks as if this was a nice move for Jay-Z. This is a nice.
Especially since he bought title for 56 million.
Right. And, so, he sold his majority stake, which is worth, like I mentioned, 297 million. He's on Square's board of directors now. It looks like, Jack Dorsey and Square, because according to the actual story that I'm reading is, Square kind of did for small business owners, people who didn't have the ability to partner with these big merchants in order to get their small businesses to sell their products, go e-commerce. They use Square, so, same way Jay-Z, a lot of the artists, couldn't afford or wasn't getting their same percentages from like, Apple and
Spotify, Apple
Spotify,
Music. Yep.
so they moved over to Tidal because, we want to help everybody. So according to Jack Dorsey and Jay-Z, it's kind of like a perfect marriage. Let me see if I can get an actual, let me get the actual quote here that I wanted to, give me a second here. But basically they were saying, that, this is a perfect marriage, so from my end, it looks like it was a good move, but there has been some people who, will say otherwise. So before I get your opinion, I wanted to go ahead and talk about this next story. These are the two stories
Okay.
for the culture versus our popular, show or experience that we like to recap on our show has been
Mm-hmm.
acquired by Triller. Now I've never heard of this app before, but I'm
Me
assumed
either.
it's a popular app because for an undisclosed amount, Timbaland and Swiss Beats, who are the creators of the versus battles, they have sold their major share to Triller, and versus will then be put on Triller's network. Timbaland and Swiss Beats will share their equity stake with the 43 performers who have appeared on Versus since it launched almost a year ago. So that answers the question to, are the people who on Versus getting paid? Well, they're going to go back retroactively and pay some of the people who were the very first ones. So you think of like Erykah Badu and Jill Scott. You
Mm-hmm.
think of Babyface and
Teddy
Teddy
Riley.
Riley before it turned into it's on Apple TV, and you got Ciroc and you've got all Doritos and
This
you've got all
where
these
you have
sponsors.
all of it. It's fully corporate.
Right. Before
Fully
that,
corporate when it was had bad Wi-Fi
right.
connections
So yeah, exactly.
and media
Right.
deals.
So they stepped all that up, right? So you can assume that the people after that, they were getting some sort of kickbacks. Well, it looks like, like I mentioned, Timberland and Swiss Beats are going to go back and make sure that the people who first helped them start it are going to get a cut as well. So those are two popular black owned or black majority held businesses who have started something or acquired something, built it up, and were able to sell it or sell their shares or sell their majority share in it at a profit, and that gives them the ability to either move on to something else or versus they're going to become shareholders in the Triller network for Timbaland and Swiss Beats, and in Jay-Z, like I mentioned, he's going to join Square's board of directors. So they still get some sort of input into the thing that they made or they built or grew, but now they've got money to actually go on and do something else. We know Jay-Z, he's got his hands on all kind of things from cannabis to
There's tech
yeah, tech
startups,
startups to the NFL
alcohol,
to NFL
champagne.
alcohol. He sold a majority share of his Ace of Spades. I forget what the actual term of it is. I know it's Ace of Spades. Well,
It's long.
yeah,
It's
he
on the
sold it
crypto
to
name.
Louis Vuitton, somebody else. So you know,
LVHN.
right. So, all that to say, you've got two or three, in this case, three black entrepreneurs who built something, who were down for the cause. Now they have sold their majority interests to move off to other things. So the question I want to ask you is, do you think these were power plays? These were power moves? These were, the ability to do an exit strategy and profit on something that, these three people built? Or do you view these two scenarios of these black owned or black led businesses that then turned around and sold those businesses to white owners? Do you see that as selling out by selling their businesses? So I just want to get your take on that.
As the GOAT Jay-Z has said, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman.
Okay.
So it's all about, I think, in addition to it being a business decision,
Mm-hmm.
because like I mentioned before with Jay-Z, he bought Tidal for 56 million.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's getting almost five times that
Mm-hmm.
back in cash and stocks. In addition to that, he's making sure that the people who invested
Mm-hmm.
initially
Mm-hmm.
in this venture when it wasn't popping, when nobody knew what it was,
Mm-hmm.
they are getting benefits from this as well. Take it down to verses. They started this out of necessity um, because we were in a pandemic. And while they have sold it to this network, they are shareholders of
Mm-hmm.
this network.
Mm-hmm.
And they've reached back to pull in the other acts that made this platform what it is. So to me, we don't have this conversation when it comes to other types of business: white business,
Mm-hmm.
Asian business, Indian business,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be. No one accuses these people of selling out for making business decisions.
Right.
Because again, we already know these people are all extremely wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, have a quote unquote need for the money,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't know what people's plans are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have Bezos out here making, what, $2,000 or whatever the case is a second.
Mm-hmm.
People give them crap, but at the end of the day, oh wow, they're smart businessmen. These individuals, I can only assume they're acquiring their wealth for their legacy, for their kids, their
Mm-hmm.
kids' kids, for
Mm-hmm.
whatever things they have in the pipeline. As we mentioned before, Jay Z has his hand in a bunch of stuff, and a
Mm-hmm.
person like him probably has 50,000 other things that he wants to get into as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what this money is going to allow him to do
Mm-hmm.
is to not only do his other projects, but he got a huge payout. He got a huge payout for his friends because honestly, most people who are, the original crew,
Mm-hmm.
their friends, that's how he got them to buy into this
Mm-hmm.
because their friends or have a business relationship, in addition to being on the board of directors of another huge tech company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on Jay Z. On Timbaland, they are still heavily involved in the culture of verses. And they can expand out on this network to do other things, to employ other people, and to put other artists on.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they selling out? In my opinion, no. They are selling up.
Right.
They are creating additional resources and streams of income for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So this is creating jobs for not just the celebrity people, but
Mm-hmm.
when you think of a network, you have to have on-air talent. You have to have, tech support, IT, engineers, camera people, all these types of folks who are in this industry who may be out of work or may be underworked or
Mm-hmm.
underemployed because of the pandemic. All of this is going to, what it seems like to me, is lift everything up to, another phase, which seems to me to be positive.
Right. So to not to say to play devil's advocate, but to offer a counterpoint,
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of people who have questions, to say the least. They'll
Of
they,
course, they always do.
their standpoint is, you could make the case that both title and verses, there was a sense of pride and there was a sense of community in the fact that these two popular platforms were minority owned. In the past 10 years, I want to say, I know at the very least in the last 5 years, there has been a strong push from the black community to build black businesses every year. We do, whether it be for Black History Month, whether it be for, around Thanksgiving with Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, buy black, these hashtags go around to where, a lot of emphasis is put on building, supporting black businesses. So there are a lot of people who are making the case to say that pray is not the right word, but they used that. Let's build up. Let's that. How can I say it? The momentum is what I'm looking for. The momentum of buy black and black businesses and support black businesses to get up the popularity enough to where they can then sell it. So it's almost like they used that to their advantage. Well, we really, you know, them putting words in their mouth. Well, we really, we're black until it's time to sell out, right? Not sell out.
But isn't that capitalism though?
Yes, it is. And that's my point, right? But I think a lot of people feel like, going even back further, going back to Sundial, the popular previously black owned hair care that owned Shea Moisture and all those people, all those brands under that, to where they sold, and the owner, I think his name is Richelieu Dennis or something like that. He caught a lot of heat.
They own Essence now?
Right. So, Essence, think of Ebony and Jet, all these companies who, BET, all these companies that have come up to say, black people, we love black people, to make a long story short, for them to turn around and then sell to where it's not majority black owned, I think a lot of people, are they feel like they've been taken advantage of, for lack of a better term. And I guess I wanted to ask, is there some credence to the fact that, what would happen if Versus didn't sell to Triller? What if Tidal didn't sell to Square and it became this behemoth of a whatever it could be, and it's minority black owned, what's is the purpose to fall into capitalism, or is the purpose to build these black owned businesses that can then go and do all these other things? I guess that's the kind of push and pull.
Why can't it be both? Because isn't the whole dream, so to speak, of black people is to own things and, become super rich,
right?
To become wealthy, to do all those things. So why can't it be both? What we don't know, which I don't know, is if it's really that important. We don't know what percentage Jay-Z sold, so he could still be have a stakeholding in it. Same with Versus, but at the same time, these are two instances of successful black-led businesses that have gone on to show invest in black people, because not only do we run the culture, but we have the money behind it.
Right.
So these two ventures may have been sold to, out of, black ownership. But what about the next two companies that are coming up behind it?
Right.
It doesn't just have to be one or two. The goal is to have multiple, is to have so many black owned successful companies that, some people may choose to sell. Some people may say, no, I'm gonna keep what I have and build up. So the goal is to have this, what we're seeing with them, with these black led companies, is to have it expanded, to have so many options that you can choose either to sell it or to keep it.
Right.
And it won't necessarily be the thing of selling out. And that kind of goes into, I didn't put it in the notes, I'll probably add it, but today it was announced that Goldman Sachs has this new initiative that they have called 1 Million Black Women. Their goal in 10 years is to have partnered with women-led, specifically Black women-led organizations to commit to help 1 million Black-led women businesses. And this isn't just in what we typically know of these type of things of mentorship and, guidance, those type of things. This is $10 billion in
Right.
direct investment capital. So that's money between grants, um, I saw it was grants and something else. But what all it means is they have committed in the next 10 years, I think it's 2030, to have positively, I'm reading from an article on their website, to positively impact the lives of at least 1 million Black women, aimed at narrowing the opportunity gaps. And this is money. We're talking about, and they say specifically, 10 billion in direct investment capital. So this is money that they are pouring directly into these women-led businesses. So my hope is they are doing this investment over 10 years. And when you think about it, 10 years isn't that long of a time.
Right.
If they are willing to put $10 billion into 1 million Black women led organizations, what is the impact of that? You can have 50 titles or 50 verses, or whatever, these Black women who have been doing the work, they'll be able to do it on a larger scale. And that to me feeds into the concept of you have Jay's thing going on, you have, Timberland and Swiss's thing, being extremely popular, being sold. But you have these other million, companies that are coming up behind it, in addition to the companies that we already have out there that are succeeding. We've talked about some already, mostly in our Teching While Black during Black History Month. So the whole idea of, selling out, while I get why some people may feel, misled or taken advantage of, there's opportunity coming. You can't just hold on to one or two things so tightly that you miss the opportunity to take part in or create additional, things.
Yeah.
Let some of it go.
Right. And history has shown, Jay-Z has donated money, given initiatives, get phil, philanthropic. Did I say that
Tropic.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Initiatives, and with the profit that he will be getting as a result of these sales, like we mentioned, him selling a majority share of his Ace of Spades liquor, to selling this majority share of Title, that's almost, if I'm doing the math correctly, almost $600 million at the least in just
Hmm.
two things that he is able to move money around. So that frees up a lot of his time, frees up a
Hmm.
lot of his capital to then invest in something like, the cannabis industry, something that Black people like really should be on the forefront,
Right.
at the, we should be at the forefront of the cannabis industry. And the fact that we're not is a whole different conversation for a whole different podcast.
Right.
But with Jay-Z being able to exit from his
Offload
exit from his
day-to-day
other
work with that.
right to
Yeah.
invest heavily, a name like Jay-Z to invest in the cannabis industry, that's going to put a lot of shine on that industry to where we are now in the conversation, not just playing around at the bottom, trying to get licenses and trying to get, certified in certain states. We're talking to like on the higher level of investors,
Hmm.
So I mean, that's just more opportunities. And like you said,
Right.
more choices, more options. Before it
And
was
his
just
Marcy,
go ahead.
no, I say, and I think his venture capital firm is Marcy Ventures or something like that. So to me, like you were saying, freeing up his time from Title, he has more opportunity to go and grab some of those other startups that may be struggling or may need investors that have a fantastic product and they just need backing. To me, him running something like Title that he probably done all he could do,
Right. And
and
it's
he's like,
still
I want
fight
to do something else.
and it's still fighting against Apple. I mean, it's still
Yeah.
fighting against Spotify. Tidal is like a third, if not fourth choice of music streaming because
And then black people talking about, oh, it's not great. Spotify's better. And I'm just like,
you can't
I
have it
mean,
both ways.
you
Y'all
can't
can't
have it both
you can't
ways.
you can't talk about the business and then when they say, "All right, well cool, we'll sell it to Square who can do something better with it." And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, but I ain't like, it's like,
Yeah.
come on now, pick one, right?"
You got it. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely agree with the fact that we should not have to wrestle with those questions when it comes to business when we are participating in business, right? Like you mentioned, Jay-Z is a business, it's not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be with, well, okay, well, if it ain't, if it ain't specifically black, then I don't want nothing to do with it. There are more than one way to skin a cat, like you mentioned. So,
Exactly.
and for him to be able to do that when we know, proof, like I said, proof is in the pudding that, he has other things out there that could help us as well. I don't see any problem with this. And we should, like I said, we shouldn't have to be fighting that internal struggle when it comes to getting millions and millions of dollars from a business that we built up. That's the, like you mentioned in the beginning, that's the whole point of business. You build something, it becomes popular. You have the option to either keep it or sell it and move on to the next thing. And me personally, just doing my own kind of, okay, well, where do I want to be in 3, 5, 10 years? Personally, I don't want to be running around starting this business and running this business. If I had an option to be able to start a fund to where I could just sit back and be like, all right, I'm just going to give you some money and then let you do it. And then you build it up. And then I get
And I collect money.
and I collect money to where all I got to do is just watch my money. I mean, I'm not saying that's where Jay-Z is going, but if I was in this position, that's what I would be thinking. I'm like, forget trying to run all this stuff. Let me sell all these businesses, create this fund that invests in other people, help them get up, and I just sit back and take profits. But again,
And
that's
that's
just
the
me.
smart thing. And that's what all of these other, CEOs and uber wealthy people do. They've done all the work and they're like, okay, I'm tired. I
Right.
put in the lead work early in my career, or in some people's cases, my mom and dad put, that work in, and I'm just reaping the benefits. But nonetheless, their thing is, I'm going to go off and do these passion projects, or I'm going to go and relax, or I'm going to do this or that, because they have the direct deposits don't stop.
Right. No, they
Those
don't.
HCHs are steady coming in, and they out there, on their yacht just chilling, or whatever the case may be. And the thing is, that's what we have been taught, or that's what people say they want. They want to just be able to sit back and, let the money come to them, or let their investments pay them. How do you think you get to that point? It
Right.
just doesn't, it doesn't just magically happen that, oh, all of a sudden I'm getting all this money, coming to me from my investments. You have to invest in things and sell things in order
To
to
move on
get
to
the
the next
money,
opportunity, to move on
making
to the next level.
making my money work for me. You got to do something for the money to work for you.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, that makes sense. All right. So, I did add that the stuff you mentioned, Goldman Sachs stuff, to the show notes. We'll make sure to include that in the story. But if you don't have anything else, we'll move on to the hookup. So I found this quick little trick that you can do to where I think most people know. If you don't know, there is a way to turn on and off read receipts. So if you send somebody a message on your iPhone, you can turn on and off the option to where they see that you read the message. You can turn that on and off in general, but you can also drill down into that even further and turn off read message receipts for specific contacts. So if you want a specific person to not know that you read their message for whatever reason,
And haven't responded.
yeah, I'm not going to judge you.
No judgment.
Right. But if there's a certain person you don't want them to know that you read their message, there's a way to actually turn off read receipts for that particular contact. So basically what you do is you open the Messages app, and then you locate the specific conversation or message thread with that contact. You tap the arrow next to the contact's name. So in the messages, if you don't know, they'll have a picture of the person's contact or their initials. Under that, it'll have the name of the contact. Click that, and then if you tap the info button, it'll give you the option to then toggle off send read receipts for that particular person. So that's just my tip for the week. I think a lot of people know that you can turn off read receipts in general, so nobody knows, but maybe you want people to know that you read, but except that one person, so you can actually drill down and do that. So that is my hookup for the week. And if Nica, you don't have anything else, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. We definitely appreciate your support. One of the ways you can show support for the show is to download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Like we've mentioned, if you rate and review our podcast episodes or the podcast in general, that helps us shoot up the ladder so more people can discover our podcast. You can definitely engage with us on Twitter. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at snobOScast. That's the handle. Definitely watch us on YouTube. We're at snobOScast there as well. Definitely do all the YouTubes, like, subscribe, get notifications turned on. You can definitely leave comments and suggestions. You can leave them on us on the website at snobOScast.com, or you can shoot us an email at snobOScast@gmail.com. You can also support the Patreon. So we've made mention of it to where we've got a specific live show to where we talk about stuff that you won't find on the regular show. You get access to that. You get access to the live show taping, so you get it early. Normally our shows go out on Friday, but we record them on Wednesday. So if you want to get it a little bit early, become a part of our Patreon, and you can do that. And we have a community that we're actively growing that you'll get access to that as well. In order to do that, give us $5 a month. You'll give us access to all those three additional features. Finally, if you don't want to do the monthly thing and you just want to give us a love offering, you can do that. You can do that via PayPal. You can go to paypal.me/snobOS, and you can give us a one-time donation. And I think that is it for this week. So until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye.